Huova huomenta. That's as good as my Finnish gets. And as you can tell, I'm not from northern Finland. My name's Andrew Funk. I'm the founding president of Homeless Entrepreneur. And I'm going to tell you my story and Homeless Entrepreneur story about how we believe smart cities can become even smarter. When I got into Helsinki, I had a lot of expectations about what Helsinki was, and I heard about the amazing work that they're doing regarding homelessness, at least with rough sleeping. So when I travel every single month, we do an event called Everyone's Sleeping in the Streets. We've been doing that for the last 38 months, and that's anywhere from the royal wedding in England to Times Square, also in the World Economic Forum in Davos, which is quite cold. It's 20 below zero, and you wake up with frozen orange juice. But in this case, what I did is I wanted to understand a little bit about what homelessness was in Helsinki. The first thing I did when I got to the hotel was leave my stuff, and then I figured, I know nothing about this city or this country. What can I do to understand it better? So it took me a while until it was about 11:30 at night because it was way too comfortable in my hotel room. But I finally put my boots on, I put my jacket on, and I decided to look for where I was going to sleep. Has anyone here ever slept in the street? Too much drinking? Okay. Let's just say finding a place to sleep is strange and uncomfortable, especially if you've never been there. So I walked around the city. There's a place called Maria 01. I'm sure you've probably heard of that place, but I figured startup, social issues, maybe it'd be a friendly place to go. So I went there. There were a lot of lights all over the place, but I didn't feel quite comfortable to sleep there. So I walked a little bit more and I found a bridge. And when I tried to sleep there, it's probably the safest place I've ever slept. But even that was uncomfortable. The insecurity of not knowing what's going on, the sound of dripping the entire time. So I'm trying to cover myself because I think it was about 4 degrees below zero, 5, 6, 7, 8, depending. But if you cover yourself, you can't see your surroundings. It may seem strange for you, but your personal security and safety is really important because many places people get stabbed, robbed, and attacked while they're sleeping in the street. But I woke up in the morning, no problems, just really cold, and looking for breakfast. Who am I? My name's Andrew Funk. I was not born homeless, obviously, although many people are born homeless in this world. I had raised 300,000 euros for a startup company to bring investors and entrepreneurs together, and I was about ready to have my first son. It was going to be the best moment in my life. But that company was mismanaged. Economic problems caused problems at home, and before I knew it, I was homeless. I was making 3,000 euros a month, which is not much in Helsinki, but in Barcelona, it's a good salary. But I couldn't pay all my bills. I had to solve my own personal problem. I was able to do that, and then I wanted to help other people, which is how Homeless Entrepreneur came about. And we focus on people that are willing and able to work and be active citizens, which represents approximately 20% of the homeless population in the OECD, which means they're willing and able to work and be active citizens. Obviously, you need some kind of methodology behind all the madness of what we want to do. And if you see that, identification is one of the most important things. The success of what we do is basically dependent upon how well we're able to attract talent and the right profile of people that want to be active working citizens. I want to make sure you understand too, homelessness is not just someone sleeping in the street. Okay? I think the concept in that regard is misunderstood many times. Fortunately, I didn't see any homeless people sleeping in the street. But I was told there's a 200-meter line of people waiting to get food near this building. They're in a homeless situation as well. A woman that's in an abusive relationship that has no place to go is homeless. A person sleeping on a couch because they can't pay rent is homeless. People living in social shelters are homeless as well. The next stage is helping people work. If you have housing, you won't freeze to death. But if you don't have a job, you'll freeze to life, which means you don't have any motivation. You don't have a sense of being. So once you've done that, and I think Finland has done an amazing job with that, you can do two things. you can tell everyone in the world, and I think everybody knows by now, that Helsinki and Finland has the best solution for housing. But now there's an opportunity to show how you can help those people become active, competitive citizens in society again. And this is what our main focus is. Instead of giving people what's left over, has anyone here ever given food or something to someone who is homeless? Okay? Did you give them the best part of your meal before you started eating, or did you give them what was left over? I'm going to suppose you probably gave them what was left over. When you give your best to someone else, they give their best too. So what we try to do is figure out how we can get people to give the best of who they are, so that other person is challenged to give the best of who they are. And that leads to stability. Stability doesn't exist, but you can be more stable. And what we try to do is, how do we get people involved in the community so that way they're protagonists of their own life? Guillaume, he was homeless for 3 years when I met him. You probably don't understand this language. It's not as complicated as Finnish, but it means, my name is Guillaume, and I'm a telecom technician. This is in front of the Mobile World Congress, okay? There are about 90,000 people that go to this event. I was speaking with him as the president. I don't have as much time as I would like to speak with all the people in the program, but at these monthly sleepouts, we spend 24 hours at least in the street. And I was speaking with him, and I said, what do you do? He said, I'm a telecom technician. I said, well, that's amazing, and that's coherent because we're in front of the Mobile World Congress. So we took really expensive material, a black marker and cardboard, and we wrote this message. As a result, he got a job. Why? Because digital inclusion will and can end homelessness if people are prepared. The news went all over the place. Euronews, national, regional news as well in Spain. And all of a sudden, people cared about Guillaume. Did he change as a person? No. He just wanted to participate, and he had the opportunity to express his voice. And then, obviously, when he started working, the owner knew that he probably wouldn't be as competitive as his other employees, but he bet on him. This was over a year ago. I had lunch with the owner about 3 weeks ago, and he said, Andrew, Guillaume now is actually more productive, using stats, than the younger employees. And he said, you know another thing? He never calls in sick. When you're 25 years old, I'm sure you've called in sick a few times, especially on Monday after a very long and stressful weekend of partying. So if you give someone a job and the opportunity to participate in society again, you will have the most loyal employee that you can have. But that doesn't mean they have to stay with you. But they entered the marketing, which is extremely important. Now I'm going to talk about something which is problem solving rather than rule following. If you follow the rules, you get the same results for the most part. But if you solve problems, then you can improve those ratios. You have a box here. This may not seem important. It's probably not even your favorite phone. But because we didn't follow the rules, we slept out in the front gate. We had the police harass us, and they were going to give us a 500 euro fine for sleeping in the street. It's expensive, 500 euros. If you had 500 euros, you could probably pay for housing. But as a result, I didn't follow the rules, and what I did was solve a problem for someone looking for work. And I spoke with the vice president of Samsung in France, and he said, why do you have Samsung on that sign? What can I do to get it off? And I said, really simple. You can add value to what I'm doing by listening to me. So I respectfully said, okay, fine. I took the signs, we went and we had a beer and we spoke for 30 minutes. Afterwards, we came to an agreement in which Samsung donated smartphones to each and every person in our program. Connectivity gives them the opportunity to use simple things that everyone takes for granted, like WhatsApp. I was watching somebody use a smartphone for the first time and sending his first WhatsApp. Okay? These are simple things that may seem insignificant for you, but for someone that wants to participate in society, it means the world. This next person, Mercedes, she's in the program as well. And as you can see, her phone there. Unfortunately, Samsung is not sponsoring us, but if someone's in the audience they want to, they're more than welcome to jump in. Flote is a project in which she needs that phone. She has to communicate with other people working in the project. We're lucky because Flote, which means afloat, is a program in which she got 250 restaurants in Barcelona to sign up to do something very simple, which is donate cork. If you drink wine, you'd probably just toss the cork, right? But in this case, we're collecting and recycling the cork, and then we're creating products with it at a higher value. And thanks to this project and using connectivity so she can communicate with everyone on the team, she is no longer homeless. Why? Because she had the technology to speak with people and to make sure her work was okay. She had a business owner who decided to participate in this project. So he put money in, knowing that at the beginning it's not going to be profitable. But in the mid-long term, you're creating opportunities for people to participate in society, which has a much larger effect. Okay, listen, solve, and execute. Has anyone spoken to a homeless person this year? One person. Do you know what problems that person has? Any problems? Okay. Do you know the person's name? Okay. So, if you don't know or remember a person's name, it's probably difficult to help them. So I'm going to invite you all, one time during the year, go to either the social lunchroom or a homeless shelter and speak with one person. You'll probably need 30 minutes of your day. I know everyone has a lot of things to do, but just take 30 minutes. Speak to them and ask them if they need help with anything. And see if you can solve one problem. It could be really simple. But if everybody in this room tried to help and solve one simple problem, and they could see how that would help them become active working citizens, there would be a lot of changes. And this is Leandro. He's a programmer. You probably don't think of programming and homelessness. He actually just got a job in artificial intelligence. You probably don't make those connections, right? But we focus on people's talent and what they can do, so that way they can be active citizens again. So listen, remember their name, try to solve one problem, and then execute and make sure it happens. If you do that, amazing things can happen. So the question here is, what rules create obstacles to ending homelessness? This might be a strange question to you, but something as simple as having a routine of when you can eat can make it difficult for you to get a job, to look for a job. Because if you're dependent as to where you need to go, maybe you don't have time to study, to work, and other things like that. When I was homeless myself, I could not enter the social housing because you had to be there at 8:30. I work from 7 to 1, and it's not 7 to 1 a.m. I work from 7 in the morning to 1 o'clock at night. It was impossible for me to do that. So there are rules that help you become a little bit more comfortable, but they don't get you out of homelessness. And keep in mind, homelessness is not just streets without people sleeping in them. It's also social housing in which people can't pay for their own rent. Co-design tech for good. Who works in technology here? 1, 2, 3. Do you involve people that are in social inclusion or being excluded socially? What we're proposing, this is a company called Comgo. Comgo offers blockchain technology to do something that's really important, which is transparency for NGOs. I'm not going to get into the details, but to understand what we do is we bring homeless people into the process of blockchain. How do we do that? We invite them to blockchain events. We share the technology. They're participating in programming in the project itself. So we're bringing people in our program so they understand more than just the definition of what blockchain is, and we're bringing them into the process. If you want to help people, you have to bring them into the design. And if you bring them into the design, you're going to do something that goes beyond solving your problems. You're also going to help solve their problems. So when you think about that, it's really important to involve the people you're trying to help. It would be amazing if there were people that were in social exclusion here today, so they could understand how we can make a smart city even smarter. And this is what we're trying to challenge people to. How do you invite those you say you're helping by involving them in what you're doing? This is Maria 01. And the question here really is, how can we involve them? And this is what I said. We have to make an effort to invite them, because I promise it is as uncomfortable for them as it is for you guys. They come here, everyone for the most part is dressed well, wearing a suit, some with ties, some without ties. but they don't see clear value in many events. How can we get them to understand that smart cities care about them and that they're welcome to form part of the solution, not just the problem that everyone's trying to solve? So I think one of those ways is getting people together. And I don't know if you have ever done a hackathon. Well, one thing that I would propose is doing a hackathon with people that are focused on smart cities, a one-day event. You can make it 2 if you really want to. But creating an application that solves a problem they say that they have. This is something that's possible. It's easy to do. People do hackathons all the time. But try to bring them in to figure out what their problem is. And you'll probably be surprised, because maybe you think that their biggest problem is really not their biggest problem. Engaging communities via active leadership. When you think of the best way to engage the homeless community, many people say, well, first, housing. Okay, I understand housing first is important. I spoke with Sam Samberis. He's the person that came up with the entire concept. And we were discussing about how you bring leaders into the process. And we really believe that the best way is by hiring people. Because the second you hire a homeless person, you want them to be happy, you want them to perform well, you want them to be part of your community. So you're making a commitment saying, you do your job and we'll do ours, and we're going to bring you into our community. So we actually believe that one of the best ways to engage communities is by hiring them. This is an example of a company called Nozama. What they're doing, it's a startup that just raised $50,000, and what they're doing is they're selling online. It's e-commerce, but there's one catch. Everything you buy on that web page is guaranteed to be recycled. And if you look at the name Nozama, if you read it backwards, what does it say? Okay? That company believes that you have to work in a different way. One issue is dignified work. So giving people decent salaries. And you'll be surprised that the results are much, much better. And also, if you know the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, we believe you have to go beyond wearing the pin. So many people have the pin. It looks nice, but you have to live it, and you have to get people to understand that number 17 is the most important. The strategic partnerships, getting people to work together to solve these problems. This is a picture of people from yesterday. It was difficult to get everyone together, but the question here is, how do you, as a leader, come up with better solutions? What can you actually do? And if I can get one person in this room to do one thing to help one person, I would be extremely happy. Even if everybody else thought I was a fool. If I could get one person to act, and one person was able to become an active working citizen again, I would be extremely happy. Because all we need is to actually make that first step. But it's easy to talk. It's very easy for me to stand here and try to speak about what we can do. But I'm a bit frustrated with myself because I have not been able to help any homeless people in Helsinki. Because the homelessness here is hidden. It's not in the street. In Barcelona, I can walk to work and I can see a lot of different people and I can speak with them and they look for me. But in Helsinki, with my experience, it's more hidden. So I need more time to understand it. But the biggest thing for us is, how do we change the world and help one person at a time? And this is what I'd like to challenge people to do. How can you, as an organization or an individual, help one person? And you may say, okay, it doesn't have to be a homeless person. It could be anyone that needs support, because poverty is much bigger than homelessness. Also keep in mind that homelessness is not just someone sleeping in the street. This is something I want you to remember, because I think the biggest issue, in a critical sense, is people don't recognize that homelessness is still a problem in Finland. It's an issue. It has been it's so much better than any other country I've gone to, which means there's an amazing opportunity to go that extra step. And instead of explaining to everyone that everyone has housing and they have a roof, now I would love to see success stories about how people are becoming active citizens in Finland. Because when I go to Google, I put homeless in Finland and success stories and people, there are no names. I can't name one person. And even if I am going to destroy the name, or I can't pronounce it perfectly, I would like to say that someone is actively participating. And I think those stories need to come out. And I think everybody in this room, at least one person, could be part of that. So if there's a way to try to bring that in on your agenda, I think it's something that would add a lot of value to the city. So recognizing that homelessness is an issue in the country is the first thing. After that, how can you make it a little bit better? This is where I slept. I wouldn't recommend sleeping here all the time, but I'm going to propose something, and if the organization and you all would like to join, and if I'm welcome back in Finland next year, I would like to propose a sleep out in which people that are working on smart cities dedicate one night out of the 365 just to stop for 1 second, put themselves in the shoes of other people, and try to come up with one conclusion of how they can help take the line of 200 meters of people waiting for food and reduce it, even if it's to 100 meters. Nobody likes waiting in line. And nobody likes being poor, and nobody likes being homeless. If we can get people together just one night, I would recommend and I would suggest doing a sleep out with those that want to in 2020. Thank you. Tak. Takefir. Kiitos. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak here. It means the world, and if you really understood the distance that someone has to travel to help homeless people in their own city, you would be surprised. But as we give more opportunities and more people learn the stories of how to bring people into society again, we can actually have more stories and show people that active citizenship is where it's at, because housing can help you be happier, but you're not going to be happy for a long time if you don't feel like you're part of society. Thank you very much for your time.